absolutely core to my Labour values as a Labour MP, and it's imperative that those from African background in our political communities, and I hope to see more engagement there. So I leave today's digital event is a great innovation inspired by all the fantastic businesses and inspirational African business women and men who contribute so much to our economy. And I think you're not just helping the future of the African business community, but of the UK economy, and that's something we should be shouting from the rooftops.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Chi. Thank you for setting the context. So there you've heard it from Chi. The African-owned businesses generate about 10 billion for the British economy. But despite all that, there are issues that we have to do with trust. We do have issues in relation to a lack of recognition, despite all these monies that is generated. So what she's saying that we actually need to be supported. African-owned businesses need all the support that they deserve. So on that note, I think we'll leave the questions later on so that we can put all the questions together and put that to all our speakers. Now, it looks like Andy Street is ready. So Andy, let me just check. Are you ready to
Yes, I am. And I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I'm now on a different device, so it should be all right.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So let me just say something brief about Andy Street. Andy Street, CBE, is the mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority, a British businessman and also a politician from the Conservative Party, formerly the managing director of John Lewis. He was there, I think he was the MD. I'm not sure whether he was there for 9 years or he was the MD for 9 years. You can correct me on that, Andy. But in 2017, he became the mayor for the West Midlands. Outside of work, Andy is very passionate about the arts, particularly in the West Midlands, having previously served as the vice chair of the Performances Birmingham Limited, which is responsible for running the city's symphony and town halls. He's also a supporter of Aston Villa Football Club and runs half marathons. So Andy, here you are. Take it away, Andy.
Thank you very much indeed. So 9 years I was MD of John Lewis for. They were good years though, compared to the challenges now in the retail market, as we all know. So thank you very much for the rather overgenerous introduction. And I wanted to come along tonight actually to support Eugene primarily, first of all. Then there's another reason which I should get to in just a minute, because I wanted to thank you and he for bringing us together tonight on this important subject, and also, of course, to thank him for setting up the African Business Chamber here in Birmingham. And it's not always that organisations that have a national reach are set up outside London, probably something that Chi and I would both support, and his own contribution to levelling up. So thank you very much. And since that organisation was set up at end of last year, 250 businesses come together, largely West Midlands businesses. So we're hoping that it will grow much more of a national footprint than that. But the other reason, and perhaps the most important thing why I wanted to come along tonight, is I think this agenda has got an incredible link to the whole question of the recovery from COVID. Yeah, everybody knows that the different ethnic communities have been impacted very differently by COVID. We've just done, like many other regions will have done, our own report on the health impacts of COVID. There was a lot of criticism of the national report for pulling punches, but we have pulled no punches. It was published 2 weeks ago, and it talks very clearly about the different death rates amongst the different ethnic minority communities. But what it points a very, very clear focus on is that there is an absolute correlation between economic outcomes and the health outcomes that we've now seen. So you come to what are the causes of the causes to in terms of the COVID numbers, and you get absolutely to the fact that we have to do a better job to deliver more equal economic outcomes for our different communities. And so I sense there's both a huge moral obligation to do that, but I also sense there's an incredible opportunity and there's huge potential here. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit this evening, basically. So getting, obviously, Black-led businesses to perform better is one way of addressing this imbalance, inequality, because we know that one feature of Black-led business is that they tend to employ more members of Black communities. So it obviously follows that therefore more people's outcomes can be lifted that way. Locally, we're trying to propagate Black businesses, and I'll come to that in just, or support Black businesses, and I will come to that in just a moment. But just as she said, there are one or two really interesting statistics about the performance of the African and Caribbean-led businesses. And the data, I have to give credit to Aston University. They have the Centre for Research into Ethnic Minority Entrepreneurship, a brilliant faculty, actually, because it really points a very, very sharp beam on this, and it tells you about this potential. And yesterday, they had at their 24th annual conference, actually, looking at this issue. They estimate there are about 37,000 African and Caribbean-led businesses across the UK, and that's about 15% of all the ethnic minority-led businesses. Some really positive features, though. They are far more likely to be female-led than both other minority-led businesses and the total business community. So an incredible accolade there for Black female entrepreneurs. And also very positively, the Black community is also increasing its rate of self-employment faster than any other ethnic minority community at the moment. So it tells us something about the innate entrepreneurial desire of your community. They've indeed, that level of self-employment almost doubled in the last 10 years. Those Black-led businesses also have a greater propensity to export, and they also are, as Chi said, likely to be more innovative as well. So lots of positives, but there are also some challenges which I think are interesting to reflect on. Difficult to prove this with research, but the CREM faculty at Aston, as we describe it, talk about much more likelihood of fallout between the idea of forming a business and it's actually happening in the African and Caribbean communities. So a desire to set up, but doesn't necessarily get as far as business formation. And also a gap between formation and growth rates. So in terms of finding these businesses that are really going to be the high growth businesses of the future, they are less likely to be led by the African and Caribbean communities. So there's a gap to cross there. And one of the reasons for that lack of growth is thought to be that African and Caribbean-led businesses are less likely to engage in the formal business support networks than, let's call it, majority businesses. And so you naturally come, if they're less likely to engage, you naturally come, well, we must form our own networks of support. And here in the West Midlands, we have a very good example of that in the Asian Business Chamber, which actually has done a remarkable job supporting its own community there. And we've seen that particularly in the COVID period. So we've got one model and we want to build out that support model through the Chamber network as well for African and Caribbean businesses. Should also then come to, well, what support can you in the regions offer to Black and Black-led businesses? And I'll just put a few thoughts on the table that might prompt some debate later. This all fits under the Combined Authorities heading of inclusive growth. It's absolutely our goal, not just maximising growth as we were pre-COVID, but that inclusive growth, as Chi said, growing back better. And that applies in transport in terms of thinking about connecting disconnected communities, our skills development, where we've got a real focus on disadvantaged communities, and indeed in our housing policies. And it also goes to thinking about which parts of our economy in terms of the business model will grow back faster. And we've got to focus here on the social economy part of the economy, which has also got disproportionately high leadership from the African and Caribbean communities. A really practical example of programmatic support is our scale-up programs, where we're taking relatively small businesses and actually helping them with business advice, mentoring in the whole, and finance in the whole question of scaling up. And we're doing that in both the creative sectors and the manufacturing sectors. And there's also definitely a piece around our procurement policies to make sure that Black-led SMEs, and indeed all SMEs, get their fair share of contracts. And a lovely example just to pull out of that is HS2, as we all know, a huge spender of public money at the moment. We've just had a workshop for nearly 800 West Midlands SMEs for thinking how they can participate. And in HS2's own procurement policies, it particularly calls out a specific requirement for supporting Black-led businesses. And then in our retraining work, we're also thinking, particularly in areas like our digital retraining work, where we're leading as a sort of national pilot. We're also particularly focusing on Black entrepreneurs in that area, and particularly Black female entrepreneurs. So what I hope you get the idea of there is, in a number of our programs, we are deliberately tilting them to give more opportunity to Black entrepreneurs. We're also working on the cultural background and this whole question of why it is that the leadership of the region does not accurately reflect the makeup of the region in all of the senses of diversity, and trying to encourage more of our blue chip companies to ensure that board representation, for example, is more representative. So just some examples there of what we're trying to do as a public body in what is, after all, one of the most diverse places in Britain, to ensure that we are genuinely encouraging and building on what I believe to be a natural entrepreneurial spirit. And I hope that in the spirit of today and what you've set up with the Black Chamber, this will actually be an effective way of sharing wealth more equally as we move out of COVID. And indeed, I would wish everybody good fortune in their own business endeavour in that shared charge. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Andy. Andy, I hope you're in a position to stay a bit longer at the end when we can take the questions from our audience. Are you okay to stay a bit longer?
Yeah, I've got actually about 20 minutes, if that's all right. I think that's what my team told you, so I hope you can work around that.
Okay, so let's take one more speaker, and then we can perhaps invite some questions on there just before you go, if that's okay.
I don't want to intrude, though. You know, the others must do their piece, so don't worry.
Okay. So yeah, there you've got it. Andy has shared some statistics with us, which shows some positive trends on Black businesses, but also some challenges that he highlighted. He's also given us some idea as to the support available for Black entrepreneurs, and I hope that we'll be able to tap into that. No doubt you may have some questions for him, but we'll get to that. Let's invite Prof. Gabriel Fowl, OBE, to share his thoughts with us. And after that, we may take some questions, and then we will then ask Dr. Tony Stewart. But before that, though, let me introduce Prof. Fowl. Prof is a multidisciplinary business and development executive, a professor at London School of Economics, and a co-founder and director of GK Partners. He's the founding director of Africa Europe Diaspora Development Platform based in Brussels, former chair of African Foundation for Development, which pioneered concepts and practices on diaspora development, and founder of Remit Aid, a program to transform remittances into sustainable development finance. Please take it away, Prof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boche, and thank you, Eugene, for inviting me. Eugene, you've kindly given me a number of questions, but I would focus on two of them faced by African businesses in the UK. And the second is to reflect a little bit on possible new opportunities in the post-COVID situation. I would make my comments just following up from points made by Chi and Andy. But I'll start with what I think are foundational problems that face African businesses. That is, these are problems that are almost as old as the African community in the United Kingdom. And in my view, unless we deal with it, this would be a perennial problem. Now, these foundational problems are linked to basic business, the factors of production. And they have reminded us that on factor number one, entrepreneurship, that is not lacking among the community. So we can tick that box, that entrepreneurship exists. On the question of land, we do not have land, but I'll come back to how we may find land. Capital, we struggle to find the capital. And labor, we struggle in that in many of our businesses, the workforce centers around us and our close-knit, either families or friends, small network. So if you look at it in total, it is not surprising that the 10 billion of business that Dr. Butcher you mentioned, I would bet that 98% of it, if not more, would be around what would fall under micro and small enterprise for the purposes of tax evaluation. Now, this is terribly bad ecology. Nothing blooming and wonderful would come out of this mix because it is heavily predominated by micro enterprises. Now, within those factors of production, what can we analyze from it to give us guidance on how to get ourselves out of this ecology, which is not good for us? And I'm speaking now more, I've spent maybe over 15 or nearly 20 years of my professional life. I ran business support mechanisms, including spending 2.5 years on a DTI project. And I was posted to Business Link in London and helped with developing this enterprise framework. Now, if we are able to find the capital, we would be able to buy the appropriate labor. To find the sort of capital we need to move from micro to perhaps medium-sized and larger businesses, in my view, requires a change of attitude and a change in ambition. And I think that's possible because there is growing confidence in the UK African community to not be held back by lack of ambition or by the multiple problems we always face. The African soul is a tortured one. We face trouble everywhere, and we always triumph over it. So that is not new to us that we face problems. So I would highlight 3 main things which I think should guide us to shift from this micro business environment to a new ecology that would be better for us and for society in general. For the entrepreneurs, I would encourage moving away from ideas to products. I've been a business advisor in that sense for many years, and I had a general rule. If someone sent me a business plan and on the cover page, all over it in huge lettering and in red, it says confidential, I can bet my money that it's a bad business because people are over interested in idea. And whereas in business, what sells is the product. You have to be able to move it from an idea to product. So that's number one, for the African community to move the brilliant ideas to products. Second, also, it's not by accident that given all of the problems we face, socioeconomic, the African community are also leaders in social enterprise. Now, that is a good thing, but it gives us a hint to something else. That is, we are perhaps, in my view, over-focused on addressing needs, not of needs. The market cares of demand. That is, yes, need is prerequisite, but most of it is not need. Even now, the food we don't eat for need anymore. We eat for what we want. So it is the demand part of it. That's why we have 100 different types of rice. We need rice to eat, but who needs 100 types of rice? It's because that brings you to the want and to the need. So focusing these products that we develop to address not only needs, but demand. So that creates a room for creativity in making the linkage of translating latent and patent needs into demand that can service the product. Third guide is to move away from what I call niche product mass market. That's what we need. Niche product mass market rather than mass product niche market. So if you go to some of the African markets, almost everyone buying there is African. That to me is a niche market. And all of the products we sell are mass products. They are similar. That is the architecture. That's the beginning of this small ecology. What we need, in my view, is niche products and mass market. So for the African dresses and all of these stuff, sometimes we even accuse the world of cultural appropriation. I certainly do not mind the whole world wearing African design and African products, as long as we own the whole supply chain. My biggest worry is who owns the supply chain. And being small and marginal, we are operating, in my view, on the margins of the supply chain. And that is the problem. So final set of reflection on if we were to make the gear change, what are the sorts of practical things we do? I've mentioned moving from self-employment and micro to medium and large. And this is the one that allows us to put bits in this multi-billion pound program client spend. Whereas if you are a small business, you will struggle to get anything. You have to be big enough to be able to reach some of these opportunities. Second would be to remind ourselves of the confidence of innovation, that the Africans are not lacking in innovation. And if we take colleagues and brothers and sisters in Africa, Kenya is the world leader in mobile money, except there perhaps might be one country that challenges that assertion. And I actually agree with that other country that would contend. And that country is no other than Somalia in terms of who is world leader. Can you believe that Somalia, where I remember one time speaking to one of the remittance business people there, and I mentioned discussions I had with the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Somalia, and he said to me, do we have a central bank? He didn't even know, but there's enough innovation, and despite the lack of a proper functioning state, you had enough innovation of business. That's right. And another example, just look at what happened in Nigeria with Nollywood and inventing a whole new genre from nil, starting a relatively poor quality, but improving. So we do have that innovation. That I would say is those of us in the UK, our markets, it is important to reflect the African market and think about Africa, the continent. Many people miss this point in terms of how bad our situation is in terms of size. The GDP, the income per annum of the United Kingdom is the same as that of all Africa put together. including the big countries, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, all of them put together the same level of GDP. So it's 3 blocks that have the same GDP of between 2.7 to 3 trillion. And that is India, all of Africa, and United Kingdom. So there's more money in Germany than all of Africa put together. So UK, Africans in the UK thinking business should reflect on the continental business opportunities. And as you all know, intra-Africa trade is being developed. UK-based African businesses also reflect of that opportunity. And the last point is moving from informality to formality. All of us would know of very good businesses, African businesses who've operated good small businesses for 20, 30, 40 years. In my view, they could have grown. And most importantly, there's hardly any succession. So there is important for formalization succession. We also find amongst especially the young African entrepreneurs who run brilliant businesses, informal. They make a good life out of it, but informal, which restricts their growth. And then you see other entrepreneurs like Stormzy, who has formalized, and suddenly you see the reach that he's able to attain in comparison to those who live in informality. I think I would stop here. Thank you very much for the
Right. This is very, very interesting, informative, and inciting. So we've heard from Professor Fall that we, as African businesses, we are not lacking in innovation. But despite that, we do operate on the margins of the supply chain. And what we need to do is we need niche product and mass marketing. But we also need to move away from informality to formalities, according to Professor Fall. I think at this point, I'm not sure whether Andy or I go now so that you can take some few questions before you go, or would you want to stay for Dr. Tony Sewell to deliver his presentation so that we have an inclusive Q&A session? The choice is yours, really, Andy.
Let's go to Dr. Tony Sewell. It would be rude not to, so let's go to Dr. Tony.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So before we get Tony, Dr. Tony, about him. So Dr. Tony Sewell, CBE, he's chair of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities, and he's also an international education consultant who is head of Generating Jennies, a groundbreaking charity which works to ensure that talented students from BAME backgrounds are positioned to excel in STEM careers. He began his career as a teacher at Success University. Most challenging schools. It was in this period that he worked on his seminal PhD, Black Masculinities and Schooling, which led to several key publications. Dr. Tony Sewell, CBE, you're welcome. Please take it away.
Thank you for that. Can I just jump in and say that I'm just going to speak in my capacity as chair of my charity, Generating Genius, and not in the other one. So okay. I'm meant to be in lockdown in all senses of the word. So I'll just speak in that capacity. Look, I'll say one thing that does interest me in this area, and that is that I do think that what the Prof said previously, he stole some of my fire here, that I do think we should really be thinking much more innovatively around the business supply chain area. And I want to say one thing that we're not doing enough of, and I think we're missing a really big trick here, and that is that diaspora community and connecting with them via the internet. I mean, if things are going on that we don't actually know about, and particularly with the young, a new, younger entrepreneurship that's coming out there using the internet and really making those connections across the diaspora in a really rich way. I'm talking about the Caribbean one, the African one, and there just seems to be something lacking in making that kind of connection work, because I do think that we've got to, even post-Brexit, think of, you know, the old Commonwealth, as it were, as a great opportunity to re-engage. And we could be the real leaders of that, you know. And I think there's a real opportunity, and we're doing that anyway. And I think there's a real kind of sense here from this forum, and I think from other means, to kind of make this happen in a more formal way. So I think I'm very positive about the outcomes. I do think there are some structural issues. I do think that the banks themselves have got to think differently about how they work. Many of them are closing down, as we can see on our high streets. And, you know, in some ways, it's almost kind of, you would have thought that there's sort of something almost spiritual there, because maybe had they been more engaging in the communities that they were placed, they probably would be there now. But, you know, I see that kind of almost a reinvention of the bank itself and what it is as a space that does a lot of education. I mean, one of the problems we have, I think, in some of our communities is access to finance, yes, but also just education about how to do business, all the formal ways of doing it. And I can't see why we can't have that for free almost. And some of our banks need to perhaps really re-engage in those communities and help them to sort of be better at doing their work. I mean, I've got a bugbear about one thing, and I share it now, and some of you might be offended by it, but I'll say it anyway, because I like offending people. I've never really understood why the hair care business is totally, the supply chain is not controlled by Black women. You know, it is an outrage really as to what happens there, that you can actually go into a corner shop and have somebody, no offense here, but somebody mainly from an Asian background, maybe from even a poorish Asian background, advising you on your skincare and what weave you're gonna have. And they're not even from the same background as you. It would never, ever happen if you were to think about Black businesses going into, say, for example, we've just had Diwali, and deciding that they're going to advise Asian women on what color saris they're going to wear. And so, you know, the thing is just completely upside down. And I just think that we've got to really understand this going on here, that we're doing the stuff on the, we're processing. This is like one issue. We're not just hair care as one business, it's a massive $1 million business, of which Black women only have a small part of that, really. And, you know, what we should be doing is trying to rework this so that we can get up that supply chain and see what's going on, because they should be selling those products, not just doing the hair, they should be selling them. And I agree, also niche markets for everybody. I don't believe in all this cultural appropriation thing. I think that we, you know, I mean, if we did that, Bob Marley wouldn't sell any music, you know. I mean, we've got to sell our products to everybody. And I think that in that sense, but we also have got to control the supply chain. So for me, I just think that there's much work to do. But I think very specifically, I think the banks have got to rethink what they are, rethink their identity, get more involved in the communities that they are in, and really start shelling out some of that money, you know, like Rishi Sunak's doing. Just throw it away, some of it. But not throw it away in a bad way. I mean, throw it away in a sense that you're actually really kind of doing something along the investment, along with the money. You're giving training. You're actually saying, look, this is how you do accounts. This is how you do your marketing, and really make those businesses sustainable. That's the key, sustainable. And actually, don't forget the diaspora. You know, that's where the future lies. yeah, thanks for that. I've got more to say, but I'll keep quiet now.
Thank you so well, Dr. Sewell. So you've heard it from him. There's something really lacking in making connections. The banks have a role to play. The supply chain is a key issue, and we really need some education on how the banks, for example, could actually engage more with the community and work for the community. Good. So we've got some few minutes to take questions. So let me just look through the channel. Sorry, the chat box. So there's something here, and I think this is probably for Andy. The HS2 seminars. Basically, I don't know whether you made reference to HS2 seminars, Andy, but there's a question here on how the African-owned businesses can be part of that. Any idea on that? Can you shed some light on the HS2 seminars?
So we were talking about seminars we did with SMEs across the region. I will freely admit they were not particularly focused on any particular community. The thing I said was particular was that in HS2's procurement policy, they have particularly called this issue out, which I think is a really good example of a really big national procurement program being sensitive to the issue of needing to make sure that opportunities arrive for Black-led businesses. There will be further of these SME seminars as opportunities move through different parts of the supply chain. So yeah, they'll be publicised in the region to try to do exactly that. Okay.
Let's say another question here. It's probably, I'm not sure whether it's an observation or a question, but I'll read that. So good evening, everyone. Really interesting discussion. I've found that many Black business owners have a default assumption that they are not eligible for contracts or tenders, including government support as well. The businesses I work with don't even think they can receive help from DIT or any other government funding agencies. Of course, there are those who are aware, but this is very rare. So this is a challenge. It looks like a lot of things, a lot of these support schemes are going on, but the Black-owned businesses are not aware of these. So what more can you do to make sure that the Black-owned businesses are some of these support schemes that you have? And this goes to all the other speakers. If you have any ideas as to how you can reach out more to African-owned businesses or Black-owned businesses.
I'll say something on that. I think it is really important that that all business support target Black. In fact, I've had meetings with the British Business Bank where they tell me they are going to great lengths to target Black channels, as it were, either through networks like this network or through media. But I think there's clearly a lot more that can be done to do that and to achieve that, and one of the things that we can ask is that the business department should be keeping and monitoring a list of Black networks. But equally, I'd also say that every Black business has an MP. Every business in the UK has an MP, you know, and as well as and many have mayors, and they can demand a meeting with their MP or their mayor, but with their MP they'll specifically have a right to a meeting to ask and to set out what business support there is available and how they should be able to apply for it. So I think you have to make use of the institutions that there are in our democracy as well.
Okay. So compliments coming there. Excellent profile. Well done. Dr. Sewell, well said, read the hair care. I think that's gone down well. Well said. Would also highlight the cultural issues. Diaspora are thought by older generations to work or be employed rather than to enterprise and start businesses. So there's also something here, I think, for Andy. How can the mayor's office support the African chamber? We've had some discussions with you, and we're looking forward to collaborating with you. Any ideas on how you can support us do what we are doing?
Yeah, so in exactly the way we've supported the other chambers, and we would look forward to doing exactly the same with you, whether it's the Commonwealth Chamber, the Asian Business Chamber here. So, and we've actually put funding into some of the Asian Business Chamber's activities. So, and we would always, to the point that Chi just answered, we would always see you as a critical network in getting the programs that we're running into the communities that you represent. So absolutely in collaboration, in partnership. And I think the evidence, and if I may say, there's been one or two cheeky comments in the chat about my contribution tonight. You're entitled to your view, but everything I've said is based on the practical things we have done here. And that is what we're going to continue to do.
So another question here, what support are in place to support young Black entrepreneurs to ensure that they can survive? What support are there in place to support young Black entrepreneurs to ensure that they can survive? Any schemes that comes to mind from the speakers? Any idea in terms of a particular scheme out there that supports or targets young Black entrepreneurs to ensure that they survive?
So I'm not aware of schemes that target them, though I know, for example, that the Mirror is right now running a campaign. Sorry, there's a bit of feedback there. Is running a campaign to promote.
I can comment.
Okay.
So go ahead, Chi.
The Mirror is running a scheme now to promote Black businesses. I think there are we can find them and send. There are a couple of schemes, but they're not very many. But I do think the point about supporting Black money, supporting our own community, is an important one here.
Okay, so Prof, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was going to say that not only for Black entrepreneurs, but business support generally have decreased since in the past years, and it's likely to decrease even further. But she did mention something which I think is very important in this situation where we are having decreasing general business support. That is brokerage for the Black businesses. Organizations like the Chamber and others are very important to act as brokers, because this gap between those who are holding the money and the contracts and the businesses where we are, the gap is very big in terms of ambition and in terms of genuine, in my view, genuine aim to uplift the Black entrepreneurial community. So that means there is a role for advocacy and for brokerage. And that is so important even in this context of Black Lives Matters, because we talk a lot about how excluded we are. And I do not accept at all that the United Kingdom, we are very bad, that we don't have the skills to uplift particular communities, because we have been very, very successful in keeping African communities, to keeping Africans to be the highest numbers in proportionately in our prisons. We're successful in doing that. We're successful in keeping them amongst the poorest. We're successful, but most of it negative. All we need is that degree of skill, but for good, that is uplifting. And for that, we cannot leave it to the institutions as they are, and the brokers need to play a big role, helped by our representatives like Chi and of those other very helpful members of parliament.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time, but before I end my session, I would like to give Dr. Sewell, Tony Sewell, would you want to add anything to what has been said before I round things up?
Yeah, can I talk about intellectual property? Because it's an area that we often miss out on in terms of business and business ideas. I'm going to cross sort a little bit with Prof here. I do think ideas are important. And I think that we've been in the past, the makers and givers of ideas, but we've not been able to market them. Hence, there's always been a story of how, you know, ideas have come up and then we've been ripped off. So there's got to be more knowledge. And this is why I come back to the education piece of how to market your ideas and how to then use those ideas to generate income. And I do think that, that we almost need a sort of repository of great ideas and how then to then market that into business. And I do think that start off point of getting us to, because young people have got some fantastic ideas and some of them just will give them away, or they're just not sure how to put that into a business. So I do think that the whole world of intellectual property and knowing how to market yourself and your ideas is a key thing. Most of our better entrepreneurs have done that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And on that note, I would like to thank all our keynote speakers. It's been a short session, but very informative, insightful, very interesting. And no doubt this will not be the end of it. The dialogue will continue in the next session, but it's been a very good context. We set the context now for the next section. Hopefully we've provided, this session has provided that framework, that strategic framework, and the speakers line up for the next session will then share their experiences and whether the strategic framework that has been set, whether it provides an enabling environment enough for businesses to thrive. Can I remind our participants that we've got a survey, a very short survey for you to complete. Please complete the survey because we need that information to be able to support African-owned businesses. But once again, thank you all for your time. Chi, Professor Griddle, Andy Street, and Tony Sewell, thanks for your time and have a very good evening. You're welcome to stay for the next session as well, but have a very good evening. So this is the point that I hand you over to my co-chair, Eugene, to take over from here. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Kwai. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that fantastic first session, very insightful and thought-provoking, quite a lot of key highlights, especially in terms of what the challenges are faced with the African-owned businesses in the UK. And of course, some of it, as highlighted in majority of the speakers, are the major things we continue to see time and time again. And I think we need to do things differently to be able to change the narrative and create a better future for the next generation. So for the next session, we have more speakers. And the first speaker, we have Dr. Lamin Jane, who's from Gambia, and he's the CEO for the Future Production Media, and also a media communication development consultant. Currently, hopefully you correct me, last time we spoke, you are doing research on African businesses landscape within the Birmingham. So hopefully you can share some of the insights in terms of what are the landscape, the behavior, and secondly, we got Sandra Popola Obi, who's the head for resourcing and capability in terms within the Department for Community and Local Governance. She has over 20 years working of experience within various levels of government and community empowerment. So hopefully she can share some of the insight in terms of her journey. It was difficult to try and summarize in just a small page. And thirdly, we got Amina Chitembo. She's the founder and the CEO of Migrant Leadership Institute in Reista, and also a lecturer on human resources and organizational behavior, DMU, De Montfort University, within Leicester Business School. We also have Muchada Vumbaya, who's the managing director of Lock Housing and Support Service, which is one of the successful social housing within the Midrand. Has lots of services that they offer. Hopefully, you can share more a bit. And Kufa Mutia, who's the CEO for Scale Up for Growth. He's a tech entrepreneur with experience in scaling up startup turnaround with a very successful track record in raising seed and early stage funding, scaling up and operation teams. And finally, Conrad Mwanza, who's the managing director of CMG International Media Group, and he's a founder and the publisher of the Global African Award and magazine and the Zimbabwe Achievers Award. I'm sure you all know about Zimbabwe Achievers Award. Is one of the successful initiatives that he's running across the world. He does the award in the UK, US, South Africa, and Australia, and I believe he's doing one tomorrow, or he just did one today. So he can update us in that way, where he also is an initiative where they celebrate and showcase the success story within the Zimbabwe community. Unfortunately, Dr. Tunde is not available. He had an emergency, but hopefully he will be able to invite him. So just to kick off, in the interest of time, let me invite Dr. Lamina to give a quick overview in terms of what has been the findings and some of the research you've been doing about the African business community, and what can we do to empower our businesses to better ourselves as we walk into the new economy. Of course, 2021 will be more challenging. COVID is still ahead of us, Brexit and other things. Welcome, Dr. Lamina, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Lamin Kejane. I'm a Gambian by nationality, currently residing in Birmingham with my family. Like he rightly said, I have a PhD in media communication, science, and also international development. I am currently doing a master's program in strategic business management. And my focus is on the Black communities within the West Midlands, but focusing more on the Birmingham city. The last conference that I had taken part a few months ago, at a point we were looking at the educational aspect of business. My research seems to suggest to need a significant improvement. But with regards to the today's subject, my focus will be, I would rather first want to address some of the things that our previous key speakers have highlighted, because I have seen some things that are quite interesting to my research, particularly the schemes that the government have for specifically tailored or designed for the support for Black communities. I have so far spoken to probably more than 200 small-scale business, the men and women that are within Birmingham here, majority of whom are Black. Seems to be very evident is the fact that there are various schemes that have been designed by either government or other donor agencies, but the conditions that are set in place are almost impossible for most of these businesses to meet. So therefore, they are systematically more or less extracted for the possibility to benefit from such kind of initiative, be it bank scheme startup projects, central government scheme, little criteria that they set in place that a business person must have to first meet before you have the eligibility to be able to benefit from those funds, are almost drafted or perceived to have been drafted with a calculative mindset that seem to suggest that they preconceive that most Black startups will not be able to meet that. So this is something that I had even discussed with my councillor, the councillor within the Franklin area in Northfield. He's an open person, and then we normally have a lot of conversation to see how best we might work together to see how we can create something that would be a bit more better of a presentation whenever he is talking about business opportunities for Black. But it's hard to say, because when you're talking about a system is normally designed to meet everybody's demand. But now, when you understand that historically, there have been a chunk of the society or a group within the society that seems to be left out, and such policies or such criteria that are set in place seem to extract them or had more or less outweigh their possibilities of having access to it, research will seem to suggest that it must have been pre-designed. So this is something that I think what's the name again? The gentleman that spoke, the white guy that spoke, I think is Andy Street.
Andy Street, yes.
I think these are some of the things that they need to really consider. Yes, policies are for everybody, but as we know, just a little chip from the gender equality campaign. Most of the time, because the reason why they intensify gender equality, supporting women more, making women have been suppressed and have been denied access to so many things that have to do with business. So I think the same similar approach could have been tended towards the Black and minority communities if truly they want the entrepreneurial aspiration of most Black people, particularly the young ones that are just beginning, to be able to succeed in it. So there are many that I would want to dilute on based on the how far my research has gone. But I think this will be very fundamental, and we do have a lot of speakers, so I would not want to take much, but as the discussions developed or evolved, I might come in and perhaps share a few more other points. But we do have a lot to do when it comes to supporting Black people around here. Data seem to suggest that there is a systematic system that has been put in place that is preconceively crafted with the knowledge that most of us that are starting right now, when I mean us, I mean the young Black entrepreneurs, will not be able to meet those criteria. And therefore, they will be struggling, or they will end up forfeiting their aspiration of becoming entrepreneurs, and they will settle for the traditional menial jobs that most Black people are doing here, or being employees rather than being employers.
Thank you, Dr. Amena. Of course, you just raised a very salient question that has been close to my heart. Recently, Business Charter just released a huge support program across so many business schools, and one of the criteria, if you look at some of the support criteria, you have to be a business employing around 5 employers. And if you look at most of our businesses, they don't employ, they're either 1 or 2, 3 man, so they are not employing that. So which means around 60–70% of the Black or African-owned businesses are out of that category and do not qualify. And we've raised that question to be looked into. But it's good point that you've raised that we need to challenge it. Let me go to our next speaker, Sandra. Sandra, I know you've done quite a lot of activities within the government. You are close to the policy. You've done quite a lot of work in terms of community empowerment. Where do you think we are going wrong, and how can we better ourselves in terms of moving forward? Because I'm sure you've heard from the past speakers, we continue to hear the same issue over and over for 20, 30 years, 40 years, but we are not moving on. How can we transform and create a better future moving forward?
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, everyone. This is a fantastic platform and opportunity to be here. Yes, you're right. We've been here for how long? 20, 30 years, 40 years, saying the same thing. So I kind of narrow it down to three things because a lot of things have been said by the panelists tonight and also Dr. Lamin that's just spoken to say there is quite a lot to do as Africans really in the diaspora and also as Africans in Africa. So the three things I want to really focus on around acquisition of skills and knowledge, around capital and around technology. And when you put those together, you get the word act, which is basically, this is the time for us to act. This is the time for us to stop talking because we've done enough talking. We need to start acting right now. And it's good to hear that we have like-minded people on the platform. So in terms of acquisition of knowledge and skills, there's so many things that government offer to support businesses and that, but how much of that get out to our communities? How much of that do we know as a community to be able to share that knowledge across our friends and family and network? So that's one thing that we need to really focus our minds on going forward. I think we kind of tend to group ourselves together in our communities. I think we need to widen our gaze. We need to kind of start looking for those opportunities and those platforms that are out there. A lot of it was talked about by the first speaker earlier on. And I think how much of that's been done in the West Midlands is being replicated across UK. We need to ask ourselves. And I think your organization is the start, because I don't think as Africans we had something like this. We've ever had anything like this. That kind of is the heart and mind and the words of Africa, if you like, in the diaspora, in the UK, and maybe you could go into the US. And then you talk about capital. And I think a couple of speakers have spoken about that. It's very, very difficult to get loans in traditional banks and things like that, because the challenges are massive. Not just not knowing what to do, but actually being able to provide the evidence that they need for them to be able to give us finance. It can be quite challenging. So that's something that we need to look at. And without the capital, you know, we can't have cash flow. Liquidity becomes a real problem for an African business. So we need to think about that. What do we do? How do we support each other to get the capital? And I think for me, it's about collaboration. So you might not be able to get money from the banks, but they're cooperatives. We can set up back home, you know, you have women actually doing cooperative business. Like every month, they put something in a collection, and then at the end of the year or something, then someone picks that up and use that to set up a business. We don't have a cooperative here in the UK for just Black people, not that I'm aware of. There might be, but I'm not aware of that, because then we can start to actually decide how that money is spent, you know, and using that money to support our people, to enable them to be able to put their ideas into products, as the professor said. And I agree with the other speaker that said, ideas are really important. We need the ideas. You know, you dry up with ideas, then you're not going anywhere. So we need to maintain that. And finally, technology. This is a brilliant opportunity COVID has offered all of us to be able to speak to each other from across the globe. We need to look at that. Most of our businesses are face-to-face. We need to get online. We need to do it in a different way. We need to think about, you know, how best to reach out, not just people if you live in London, but across the UK, across the US and the globe. We need to start thinking big. We've been thinking small. We do our own, we go into work, we work for someone else, or we set up a one-man band business. No, the time has gone when we do that, because that's not sustainable. And I think one of the speakers talked about sustainability and legacy. Those are the things, and also succession. Those are the things that we need to start thinking about as Africans. And I'll stop there and let other speakers have a chance. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for raising quite a few points here, especially access to finance. Yesterday we were having a debate about it, and we are trying to change mindset from access to finance to more ownership of finance. If someone is running new money, you're not actually owning that money, but how can we have ownership of the capital of finance? Of course, you raise issues about mindset transformation. Think big, move away thinking locally, look the bigger picture. How can we look long term in terms of scaling up and growth? Other things, technology, I'm sure Akufa will expand on that because he's an expert in that. But collaboration and cooperation is what this chamber is all about. One of our mission is to harness collaboration and cooperation amongst African community. Move away from working in isolation or in a way that we undermine each other. More look in a way, how do we cooperate, support each other, put together some cooperative initiative ideas. And so it's good. Thank you for raising those things. In the interest of time, let me go to Amina. Amina, you run a Migrant Leadership Institute, and we know most of African-owned businesses in this community are migrants, and they face a lot of migrant issues and or integration issues. What have been your experience, your finding? How can we enhance more integration, be more productive, and participate more in this community and excel? Of course, we are looking about thriving in the community as a migrant society.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for all the speakers that have spoken before me. And I think, Eugene, you mentioned a very good point there about all of us, most of us in the African community being migrants, because that is my area of research, and the Migrant Leadership Institute is what I'm calling my new baby. There's 3 of us in it, and we've just literally started that. And that's coming on the back of, if I take you a bit backwards from where I'm coming from, is I've been in the UK for 20 years, and within 3 years of being in the UK, I realized that working in the NHS, there was a lot of issues that were happening, and I've got quite a big mouth. I was helping a lot of people, ethnic minority people, with discrimination issues, which I also faced. So I ended up setting up a charity, and from 2005 to 2015, I was running a charity in West Sussex, which was helping ethnic minority communities to bridge the gaps and deal with some of the policy issues we've talked about. Now, like everybody else, we come in as migrants and set up a business, especially us women. We set up a business because of our heart, because of the need, because of we see something that needs solving, not necessarily that we've been educated in business, so to say. So as the government changed in 2010, the charity, I was doing very well and employing a lot of people. I had about 15 staff, paid staff, and also we had volunteers. And we were going quite wide in terms of our reach. But suddenly the government changed, and all the funding that was going to charities, especially small charities, especially ethnic minority charities, dried out in a couple of months. So problems started to a point where we narrowed down the charity and closed it down. And I ended up going back in the NHS, where I worked for a good 3 years again, but in quite a leadership position. Now, the kind of person that I am is I like helping other people, and coaching is one of the things that I've done. I've got a master's in leadership and management. So within that, again, the system is set up against us. And that's the very first thing to look at in terms of what we find is as Africans, we are strong. We come here, we are strong, but the system can easily break you down. And a couple of years ago, I went for a conference, a UN conference where I was speaking in Germany, and issues came up around businesses and how Africans are running businesses. And it became very clear that communities like the Nigerian community, the Kenyan communities are communities that are doing well. I come from Zambia, and some of our communities don't do very well in business. And so I went to try and learn more. And so I'm doing a PhD. Sorry, that's kind of like long ahead. I'm doing a PhD, and one of the agreeing with Dr. Lamin there in terms of the research that I've done and the interviews that I've had with African women. A lot of us struggle with leadership, struggle, whether it's within our business or within organizations, whether we are doing business as our main bread earner or a side business. We go hand to mouth and very micro because we don't have the skills that can help us, and we don't even have the support. This is why this organization is so important, because then having this, then at least you know you can go to a familiar place. So my three key things that I wanted to just raise is investment in ourselves as business people who want to go big in business. We need to invest into ourselves so that we can learn more, because the more you learn, the more you'll be able to open up yourself to opportunities. Just look at what happened in terms of the same support that came. A lot of us were being advised by our accountants not to declare profits when you make profits, because it's clever accounting. But that clever accounting ended up working against people when the government put out the packages. So if you educate yourself, if you invest yourself, you will know some of those things. The second thing is networking. So I travel a lot, and most of my clients in my leadership development coaching are in the US and they're in Australia. So sometimes I'm up in the middle of the night coaching somebody over the phone. Why? Because I've traveled to the US to go and learn more about my work, and then you network and meet people who link you up. So a lot of people that I've worked with, women that I've worked with, I work a lot with women, so I'll talk about women. In our communities there is a lot of the them and us mentality. The them and us mentality, we are a minority in the UK, and some of the things that we want to leverage and get will come from them. So if you are going to be the only Black face in a room because you've gone for a networking event, if it's going to give you business, let it do that, rather than looking at some events and saying, I can't go there because then it's not for us. The third thing, somebody just mentioned when I said I was doing a PhD, and I was asked, which PhD are you doing? And the reason the person asked that is there's two PhDs, with the Doctor of Philosophy, and then they pull him down or pull her down. So within our communities, the collaboration is a very key thing. We need to stop the pull him down or pull her down and actually support ourselves. And I agree very much. I don't do hair wigs and whatever, but having us going to an Asian shop to buy hair as opposed to supporting a fellow African sister who's starting a small shop and helping them to grow is something that's very common. And until we clean up some of those things within our communities, we will still be going backwards and still be talking for many, many years to come. So those are the points that I wanted to share today. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Amina, for that quick, brief, insightful talk. And of course, as the other speaker, you've extended and touched some very salient area, especially this. I like this: pull him, pull her down. It's a common issue and as a common challenge that we continue to see, and it's disappointing because every time, sometimes even other society tell us that we don't support each other, we undermine each other, we don't collaborate.
If I just add on that, just as an example, if somebody comes to me and they want some coaching from me, if they're from my own community, they'll want me to give them at quarter the price of what I offer. So how am I going to manage to make anything if I'm going to bring the prices so low? And even when you bring those prices low, they want blood from you, because the little money that's been paid to you, they want you to give them a lot more than you would if you just saved somebody from a different community. So I think we need to work together and just support each other.
It's true, because it's a big challenge. We don't value our own people. We don't patronize our own businesses or our peers' businesses. We would much more spend more money in other community than spending or investing in ourselves. It's a good observation, and it continues to be a big challenge. I would welcome the other panelists in terms of how we can address this, because even the chamber ourselves, we've faced that issue when it comes to membership. We put our lowest membership, but we're still being criticized that it's still too expensive. And to be honest, it's still even, you can't buy even, it's just, it's very low, but people won't expect more for less, while they are happy to spend more money on somewhere else without scrutinizing the same thing that of course, you've touched on other things in terms of exposure. Exposure is important. We need to network, because if you are not somewhere when the opportunity comes, you're not going to see. And we see it quite a lot when we attend some of the meetings. You find you are just one or two. But it's good to be there, because you're likely to learn more. You're going to build more network. You're going to be called upon. I'm sure Andy has mentioned it. We've met a lot of time chasing him about setting up a chamber in so many times that he even feel like he has to support, but it's in a good way. Of course, systematic issues continue to remain across, and the leadership is a bigger issue in some of the smaller businesses, why they are not progressing, because they are only focused on operation, behavior, and support, and forget about thinking about setting the vision in the long term. In the interest of time, let me go to the next two speakers. If I go to Muchada and then Angie, I know you are successful entrepreneurs who are doing amazing work, growing businesses, and we would love to know more about how have you managed to break down all these barriers that has been talked about since 6 o'clock, and you managed to set up business. You are doing well. I'm sure you've had to go through dark days, and how do you see moving forward? We can support other businesses to go the same path, because the mission of the chamber is to support African businesses to thrive. And we would love to learn more. Where are we getting it wrong? What can we do better? Muchada, probably let me start with you, and then you can go to.
Thank you so much, Eugene. You put a great mantle on me to be able to answer all those questions, but I know I'll do my best. It's been really great hearing some of the panelists that have been on there and their valuable insight in terms of how we can empower African businesses and enhancing productivity, in the various, in the UK economy. And I will just try and touch on some of those things which you've asked me to highlight. One, in terms of my experience as a business owner and entrepreneur here in the UK. Secondly, also how organizations like yourself, your organization, the African Business Chambers, how we can promote businesses to be competitive and to be sustainable and ensure that we grow and thrive in this economy. But more importantly, the third part, which you mentioned about, how do we collaborate as business owners? And I'm just hoping that tonight I'll be able to tackle some of those issues that you've raised. What I'll start off with is something a social worker said to me. He said to me that the reason why they placed a young person with our company is because we have a reputation of having a resilient approach and an attitude of never giving up on young people. Now, to me, I was really blown away by this, because it was an acknowledgement of what we do in our company. Our company is called Rock Housing and Support Services Limited. We work with 18-year-olds where we're supporting them with independent skills, getting them equipped and ready for adult life. We've been operating for just under 5 years. And in that, we believe that we are making great strides in the health and social care sector. Of the young people that we support, but we're also managing to gain a much larger share of the market in that sector. How did we get there? I'll talk more predominantly about the challenges we faced in relation to the impact of COVID-19, but also more importantly, how did we overcome those particular challenges? We were quite fortunate in the health and social care sector that in terms of the effect, it wasn't as pronounced as in other sectors like hospitality. However, we still faced quite a significant effect, and that was mainly on our cash flow, where we run various residential homes for children, and we had a number of vacancies in our homes. And this was due to the fact that a lot of local authorities were not really wanting to move young people around in the first, wave of the pandemic that we faced here in the UK. And it's really interesting. I'll pick up on something that she mentioned earlier on. She gave a statistic about, Black entrepreneurs being resilient in business. And for us, that was a very important thing that we had to do in business. One of the things that really helps me, and I think Amina touched on it a lot in terms of empowering each other as leaders. We need to strive to actually be able to equip ourselves to lead the businesses that we lead. And for me, I do that by reading a lot of books, listening to podcasts, and understanding how other successful Black entrepreneurs, other successful businesses have thrived. One of the people I love listening to is Bishop T.D. Jakes. One of the things he said is adversity and challenges strengthen you. And there are trials in the gymnasium of life, where you can work out how to be resilient. And for those that actually do work out in the gyms, you'll know that that last rep where you are doing the last 2 or 3 reps is where when we faced the pandemic, in our business. But we focused on 3 key things. One of those was really assessing our systems and seeing how efficient our systems and procedures are. I'm sure a lot of businesses were looking at cost-cutting measures, but still seeing how those cost-cutting measures, we can keep them so we can be sustainable and get through the difficult period that we all faced. The second thing that we did was looking at training our staff. There's a very renowned Zimbabwean female businesswoman. I'm from Zimbabwe myself, proudly to be Zimbabwean. I know there's probably 2 other Zimbabwean people on this panel, but I'm proudly Zimbabwean. And there's a very famous Zimbabwean businesswoman, Divine Dukum, and she runs one of the largest security companies in Zimbabwe. And she said this: success depends on your employees. For knowing and connecting with my employees is very important. And for us, we had to do that because we knew that our employees were also under the similar stress that we were facing as business owners. They were worried about their livelihoods. They were worried about whether they can feed their families. And we had to try and ensure that we could encourage them and just inform them that we're in it together with them, facing this pandemic that we're all facing. But also more importantly, we took the time to train our staff during this time where it was a quiet period. We looked at how can we improve the services that we're offering. And for me, it was quite key as a business owner to know that I need to equip the staff that we have. so that when we get back again into the normal sort of routine and get more referrals and young people placed with us, we can provide that excellent service. So I'm just going to move on to 3 very key important things, which I hope in my presentation you will take away today. And those 3 things are to strive for excellence, to celebrate each other's achievements, and networking. I'm probably stealing Amina's script here, but I'll be quite short. I was thinking, oh no, I should have gone before her, you know. But anyway, here we go. So striving for excellence. I think sadly, we have to really define what is perceived that African business owners, you know, cannot deliver excellent businesses. We really have to go against that grain, because we have to question ourselves as African entrepreneurs that, you know, are we really in this to have sustainable businesses? One of the panelists talked about succession. Are we thinking of succession, you know, or do we have that short-term goal that we want to amass so much wealth so that we can equip our retirement packages, the retirement plans for being back in Africa, you know, and living in those lovely mansions, and that's us retired and we've made as much money as possible, but to the detriment of the contracts that we've won or the tenders that we've won. And what reputation are we actually leaving as Black businesses? You know, are we striving for that excellence? Similar to Amina, I also do mentoring and coaching. And one of the things I always ask my potential mentees is, you know, don't just join the bandwagon. Really look and see, you know, what skill sets, what experience do you have to go into that potential business? Don't just do it just because everybody else is going into that particular sector. You know, at times I'll speak to an accountant, someone's got an accounting professional experience and they want to go into supported accommodation. Instead, change your mindset. You know that there's a lot of people that may be looking to go into supported accommodation. Why don't you develop an app that can help them with their accounting, that can help them with their finances? And instead, you've got a very big market that you can now work with. You know, don't just join the bandwagon and think that I'm going to go into this sector because everybody else is doing it. It's good to find opportunities, you know, in terms of what's the opportunity that's there for you right now. But is that opportunity really the right one for you? Another point I just want to mention is something that Jean Ronan says, a very famous and very esteemed business owner and philosopher. He says that you only get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. If you're not very valuable, you're not going to earn much money. You know, how much value are our businesses, our African businesses bringing to the marketplace? You know, it was quite profound where I read an article about the CEO of Walt Disney, which is Bob Iger. He was paid £65 million in 2018. And that was an 80% increase in what he was paid the previous year. But why was he paid that? Because he brought value to Walt Disney. In 2018, Walt Disney's revenues were 59 billion. So he's been paid for bringing that value. You can only bring that value to the marketplace where you're providing excellence in the service that you're delivering. So as Black business owners, we need to go against the grain, that narrative that we cannot give thriving businesses. My second point is about celebrating successes of other African business people. PhD, Amina mentioned it, putting her down. Wow. You know what? I started off when I said a social worker said to me that we placed a young person with you because you guys have a good reputation in being resilient and not giving up on young people. You know, some other people might have heard that statement from me and thought, yeah, Muchada, what does he know? You know, it's only supported accommodation. You know, anyone can do that, you know. And I'm guilty of that myself sometimes, you know. I look at maybe other fellow, I used to be guilty of that. I need to correct myself. I used to be guilty of that until I changed my mindset, because I would look at other Black business owners and think, I can easily do that. Yeah, sure, not a problem. Instead of actually celebrating that this person has actually done well in that particular sector. And when we actually do that, that changes our mindset to now be more receptive, to learn from them, learn what is it that's actually enabled them to get to that pinnacle of success, to get their business, to have such a reputation, for them to be an esteemed business person. And I would like to really, on this point, applaud my colleague, Conrad. He does Zimbabwean Achievers Award successes, in our Zimbabwean community. And he started that off in the UK and has taken it to other countries, South Africa, America, and Australia. So we need to really strive to doing that as business owners. And I strongly believe that when we have that right attitude of striving for excellence, of celebrating one another's successes, that's only when we can start collaborating as business owners. That's only when we can start being receptive to building effective partnerships and networks. That's only when we can start saying, I'm going to go and buy my hair product from my fellow Nigerian woman that's over there, instead of going to the Indian shop that's right next door to them. And I think where such organizations like yourself, Eugene, and the African Chambers community can actually help is, being a platform to showcasing, such businesses like that, to showcasing, where Black entrepreneurs, Black businesses are doing well. And in that's where all the networking comes from. But the thing that we need to be celebrating is the successes that we have as business owners, and then learning from them and being able to really achieve sustainable businesses and businesses that thrive. So thank you so much for that time that you've given me. I hope that's just given a bit of insight to what we've managed to do as Rock Housing and Sports Services, and just some of my opinions about what we can do to empower fellow African business owners. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Muchada, for that additional input in terms of course, striving for excellence. And it's pained quite often we are non-African business for poor quality. And we also face it ourselves. You go to an African restaurant, you see the services you get. You go to a nightclub in Birmingham, you see how things are cutting corners and all those things. And it creates, we need to educate people about quality excellence, customer excellence, because that will what builds reputation, return in terms of repeated sales, repeated customer. But quite a lot of some of those businesses don't understand. They think tomorrow you still come and get the same. Of course, you've touched things about celebrating our success, and hopefully Conrad can give us some tips, because part of the chamber, our mission next year is to host the first UK African Business Award, same like all other chambers, hopefully in Birmingham, and invite all other businesses across the UK to come and celebrate our success. And part of our mission next year, hopefully COVID-19 constraint will be overcome. We aim also to host a trade fair and show. Is also about showcasing African solution, African businesses, African innovation. So these are some of the things we have in the pipeline to make sure that we continue to showcase some of the things the African businesses are doing, and we give them a spotlight also at the same time. But I'm conscious of time, and my apology, we might have to go over the initial planning. So let me go quickly to Angie before we go to Conrad, and then we can catch up with Kufa if you don't mind. So Angie, well, I know you're running quite a lot of businesses, including healthcare business school, teaching people how to set up healthcare businesses and other things, including women in healthcare. You are director for Trio Consultancy. please share your experience and what has been the some of the challenges and what will be the best way for us to move forward in terms of supporting other businesses in the society.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'm so humbled to be part of this panel today, and to be sitting here as a delegate, because as I have received quite a lot from the delegates as well. I really feel sorry for my sisters and brothers who could not make it, who couldn't join this such a very productive and informative part. So yes, as somebody who's in the healthcare sector, I work mostly on encouraging my clients, or should I say anyone who's in the sector, about like emphasizing on delivering quality care, which then enables you to make profit. So the recent global health crisis has actually has put the healthcare sector in a spotlight, but even more before the COVID-19, there was a growing demand for such a high quality healthcare sector. So I'm one of those. I would like to say thank you very much for adding me soon after my brother, who spoke really very well, and who actually really presented himself in a more really encouraging and support, on how you can really set up a successful healthcare business. So with that said, I talk quite a lot about business opportunities which people might potentially tap into, where at this moment I'm saying to most people, how about you look into what's currently available on the within the COVID contracts? Because yes, of course, we might have some of you here who might already be in the health and social care thinking, oh yes, this is a saturated sector, because this could be due to being surrounded by most of your colleagues or most of your families who are also already in the sector, forgetting the population of the UK, which is 60 million, to say what is the percentage of the providers which we currently have compared to the actual population. So with that said, I liked what my brother said about us having some sort of resilience. So for those who are already in the sector, I always encourage to say, if you are already saying in domiciliary agency or in supported living, how about looking around on what other services you can provide? One of the speakers mentioned something about you providing some products. It's this is a really kind of a great opportunity if you are in this particular sector to not only focus on providing this service. Think outside the box and look at what your current clients or your current service users might also benefit from you. So I said I talk mostly about quality care, and which enables you to make profit. But the question is, what is quality care? So what I encourage, or should I say what I teach people through the workshop, is to, especially during this COVID-19, which has really put us in this challenge, is to put your house in order, whether it's in the healthcare business sector, whether it's in any other business that you might be in. Because what most of us as Africans, I grew up in a family where my parents were in business, so every time when I came back here, I see quite a lot of most of my fellows, or most of my brothers and sisters, we tend to run our businesses in a more like an African way, transferring those skills that we saw our parents doing, like a few things that they're doing, not doing them professionally or not doing them right. Cutting corners, for example, being another thing, and also not giving some recognition in employees. So this is something that one of our brothers also covered. So I say quality care could start from your recruiting and your retaining of your staff. Are you recruiting your staff very well? Because your staff are the most viable resource in your business. That could actually, they can either make you or break you. So if you empower them, if you train them well, if you induct them well, if you continue to support them with more personal development and always looking after them, they will, with no doubt, help you grow your business. They will also look after you, and also ensuring that when you are employing, you go for, you know, like a competency and capable staff. By so doing, again, that could help you with, you know, like grow or sustain, you know, build a sustainable business. The other one point is the networking, which most of my colleagues here has already highlighted. So I say networking in a sense of the healthcare sector, understanding that there are so many other business opportunities out there where the local authority itself, they do some networking events, they've got some funding available, they do some marketplaces where they want to test the market. They're looking for providers who can come and share some ideas with them, find some solutions to their problems. So as you go attend all those networking events, you might be surprised that you might be going with an intention to set up a certain business because your brother or your sister or somebody you know was already in the business. But by the time you get there, you might also get an opportunity to identify another business. With that said, there's the NHS network, some other NHS as well, where you can also identify some networking events. At the moment, most things are done virtually. There's no excuse to miss out on these events if there anything's out there. The CQC is another platform. They do quite a lot of networking events. They're doing quite a lot of virtually lately. Again, attend those events and understand what they're really looking for, so that when you're coming from the place of a provider, you're able to provide a more sustainable business. Then the other one is the financial viability. As a business, as a small business in the, as actually like a black business in the UK, we also need to understand the importance of having like a financially viable business, which obviously comes from, which could be demonstrated through your financial management. We've seen quite a lot of people recently are going out there to get some funding, getting out there to tapping into some available, or maybe grants, the loans. The question is, what have you done with those funding? Have we sent those funding to allocate them to something else? We've seen in the news, I've been like following some other forums where you hear all sorts of stories, and the small prints, most people missed out on reading those small prints, which is saying, if you get any access to any of this COVID funding or any of these bounce back loans, are you actually going to be growing your business? Are you reinvesting them into your business? Have you identified some opportunities which could really honestly help you understand the business? Are you seeking professional help before you even spend that money, or even before even applying for that loan? Have you gone to an qualified accountant to ask for advice, for them to confirm or to advise you if you really need those funds? After getting those funds, are you actually allocating them to the right place? Do you realize it's not actually is the business loan? So hence I'm saying, by so doing, once you get that loan, are you reinvesting it into business growth or into solving some problems which came with the actual COVID? So again, within the financial viability, the other thing is the cash flow. One of the biggest challenges which I've encountered, or actually which I come across with most of my clients or my colleagues or people I maybe network with, is that not understanding how their suppliers pay their invoices. So for example, if you're working with some local authorities or some of the NHS framework, they tend to have a 30-day invoice policy where most of people within the sector do not understand, whether it's in the healthcare sector or any sector. If you're working with any of this public sector, it's always important to understand that the funds will not come from, will not come within the 30 days if you once you've supplied your service. So you've got to ensure that you have a backup plan, you have a contingency plan for, to say, if the funds are delayed, where will I get the funds to ensure that my business continue to run smoothly? I pay my staff on time, I pay my supplier on time. I don't end up being in a situation where I'm having to, to borrow and with interest, or having to be labeled. I hear this quite a lot among my people, like where they'll say, oh, there's this particular agency, it doesn't pay. They don't pay their staff. And I always kind of try and disregard that statement and say, no one on this planet would really, with the right sense, would actually go and set up their business, work so hard and choose not to pay you. It's because they don't know the real, the honest truth about the whole sector and the challenges that come with supplying stuff to supplying your services to the public sector. So with that said, I'm going to leave you with a few tips on the building a healthcare business in particular in the pandemic, or any other, maybe this might actually work for any other sectors as well. So the most important thing is the contingency plan. How you deal with the shock in business eventuality. Just for example, when the COVID-19 hit us, we were caught off guard. And most businesses closed because we did not have the right systems in place. We just panicked. We did not have, know where to go, what to do next, due to the fact that, because we didn't have maybe that contingency plan in place. It's always wise to have something in writing and understand what your really, like what your plan B is if unforeseen circumstances like this arise. So with that said, some of the tips that could actually help you do that is, if you are already providing your services, let's say again in the public sector, try and secure your own contracts. It's good to be with maybe private clients, but then always plan ahead. Get more contracts. If it's tenders, keep on applying your own tenders. Insurance policies is another one. Again, being caught off guard, most businesses weren't aware that their insurances, that small print part of the insurances. So always check your insurances, always check your policy, your business insurance and your policies in line with with all these changes, and ensure if you need to kind of like maybe change, to keep on maybe add on or top it up, so be it. Don't be caught in a situation where there's another, maybe God knows, COVID 2021, God forbid, be then left in a more vulnerable place. The other one is the government updates. There is quite a lot of free information out today, which is made available for us. And as consultants, when clients come to us, especially, sometimes it's really sad to know that the information is out there, but people aren't, because they don't want to kind of like to empower themselves to network. The information end up being sold to them, which again most of people might not like. So it's always wise to be on the government website, the updates. There's a lot of things happening. I've already touched the funding. There've been grants maybe which have been announced. And in this particular sector, there's been a bit of like some changes on the sponsorship license for those who are recruiting. Again, some other opportunities here. There's personal development. I know most of my colleagues have already touched that area on the personal development. Invest in yourself. Continue to invest in yourself. Invest in your staff. There's quite a lot of support or funding available out there, especially in the healthcare sector, where one can, where as a provider, knowledge. And also, like as my brother said, there's quite a free information, quite a lot on YouTube. Pay for some personal development courses, pay for some trainings, and keep yourself in debt, up to date with anything, any current affairs, and also ensuring that you also understand any changes in the system. Yeah. The other thing is that adapting into like professionalism and developing the right mindset as in business. This is one of the biggest challenge as consultant. I know we've got quite a few consultants here who could actually agree with me to say we need to really work on our business entrepreneurship mindset, because this is where we tend to lack quite a lot. This is where we get challenged, and due to that, we start our businesses with the reason, with the aim of not going back to the 9 to 5, and before you know it, a few months later, we end up going back. After taking 10 steps, maybe 10 steps forward, we take 20 more steps backwards, because we're thinking, oh, I think I'm better off going back to my 9 to 5. But why did you actually start in the first place? So again, work on on your entrepreneurship mindset. Last but not least, we've got the quality management, which is the customer services, where through your audits, your systems, and also your compliments and the and comments from your clients. Or take those seriously and always take any constructive any criticism and learn from that as us, because we tend to get quite offended when we hear all the negative comments being made on us. But so always take that to your advantage and support your community. I can't emphasize that enough. It's been said quite a lot. Again, we've got to ensure that we are brothers keepers and sisters keepers. Just before I go, the other one, which is really interesting one, is when you hear some of us, like some of our fellow sisters, fellow brothers, talking really saying negative things about other sisters, it's really kind of really brings us down. So let us support each other and build a very strong community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angie, for that broad expansion. Of course, you kind of share something that some of them has been shared with the other speaker in terms of quality excellence in what we do. We need to make sure that we support each other along the way, professionalism, invest in ourselves, and of course, continuously educate ourselves. I share the same thing. The government has been providing quite a lot of support, and you get disappointed to hear that people are not even aware about the bounce back loan or other things. And this information is out there in the public. So we are failing to empower ourselves beyond blaming the government or the institution. I think we need to also make some advanced steps in making sure we are reaching out to tap in those opportunities, because we can't be blaming the government to bring everything to our doorstep or come and feed or things like bounce back loan, a one-page application. Anybody can do that. Doesn't ask for, but some people are struggling even to apply for that. It's disappointing, and this is why sometimes other society, they kind of underestimate us, because sometimes the behavior from our society is also disappointing in terms of things the basics and things that. In the interest of time, probably let me go to Conrad and then Kufa, because I'm sure, my apology, we've gone over. Conrad, I know you are busy, you go to your show. It's today or tomorrow, but it's good to have you. And we've talked about celebrating our success, and you're amazing. You're doing amazing work with Zimbabwe Achievers Award, and we want to, of course, invite you for next year to help us also put together an African Business Award in the UK. To maybe we can tap into your experience. But how have you done it? You doing it in the US, in South Africa, in Australia, in the UK? What are the lessons can we learn from you?
Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. I'm actually in South Africa, so we are 2 hours ahead of you. Thank you for having me, Eugene. The event is actually tomorrow night, Saturday night, and been fortunate enough, we've been doing this for over 10 years. We've managed to spread around the world. But I've got some points that I put down that perhaps also speaks to what a lot of the panelists and speakers spoke about today, following from the first session, which I would probably go a different direction and like to differ with what has been said, especially in the beginning when I heard that there's a lack of funding. I would differ completely with that. The funding, there is a lot of funding. There's a lot of government support. And I also believe the bank will not turn you down because you're African. I tend to refuse that. If the idea is good, the funding is there. Through my work with the Zimbabwe Achievers Awards and the Global African Awards, I have met very successful business people, and we do have a lot of successful business people in our community. I could drop a few names. You have Dr. Ishmael Ahmed, who started World Remit, which has become a global phenomenon. It's a global business. He's African. He managed to get funding. You have also a young man called William Sashiti, who has created a driverless car. he has got a lot of funding. So I want to move away from this victim mentality that we sometimes have and say there is no funding. There is funding. But what is not there, perhaps, is awareness about this funding. So we don't have education to know how to get this funding. That is what is lacking. The British government have been very good to us as Africans. So I don't want to take that away from them. But the only thing that lacks is education. Do our fellow African business people know that there is funding and how to get funding, and skills? So that is my first point is there is no awareness of the funding that is available. So perhaps organizations like yours are very crucial to educate people, to let people know that the funding is there. So please, I hope we stay away from the fact that there is no funding for Black businesses. I refuse that, because with an idea, Chinese comparisons, they get loans, there is loans, but you need to know. So which takes me to my second point, is that, of course, if you go to the bank and your things are not in order, you will not get a loan. So you need that formality, you need a solid business plan. If you have a solid business plan, you have a solid idea, the money will chase you. You don't even have to chase the money will come to you. Hence, we have a lot of successful business people like Dr. Ishmael, as I said. His idea was great, his business plan was solid, everything was formal. So let's, again, that's my second point. Let's formalize our business. If we are doing a one-man band business or a suitcase business, and we're not formalizing things, you will not get funding. So I want to be quite brutal about that. Let's move away from the fact that there's no funding. There is a lot of funding in the UK. Eugene, you're talking about bounce back loan just now. It's available, the government scheme of SMEs, also, giving small startups, there's startup loans that are available. But with that being said, with these loans and these programs that are available, what lacks is my third point, is that mentorship and support. So a lot of business do get loans, but what they lack is, you've applied for 50,000, you've applied for 20,000, you've got a great business idea, and what do you do with that money? That is where the issue is. So there is a need for, my third point is mentorship and support. And again, an organization like yours can play that part. Those who are getting funding, I know when I started, I had applied for 10,000. I didn't know what to do with it, and I blew it away. So, but if I had, if that loan was backed up by a mentorship program and support of some sort, or assigned to a mentor, I could have, done better. But that was a lesson that I learned, which hopefully I can pass on to the younger entrepreneurship, to the younger entrepreneurs. So it's mentorship, lack of mentorship and support. Again, organizations like yours can play a vital part. Now, you also spoke about wanting to do business awards. This again turns up to my fourth point. What I think we lack as African businesses, as Black businesses, is lack of collaboration. That is a very key point. My fourth point, does supported living, if someone does awards, if someone does a care agency, everybody's doing the same business. Everybody tends that. But I feel like if you collaborate, you can do more as businesses. For us to have a global domination, we cannot go it alone. So we have to find ways to collaborate with each other. Very, very important. And maybe we want to take the glory. I don't know where it's coming from, but I feel it's important that we collaborate. So if we can find ways to work together as a community, and it gets back to the same thing of PhD that everyone was talking about. It's because maybe we want to shine, so we want to be on top. I want to be the chairman, and no one else can be the chairman, so I will pull everyone else down. But we don't realize that is the Asian community, the Chinese community. If you want to dominate the world, you've got to collaborate as communities. So I think within our community, that's what we lack. How do we find ways to collaborate? Again, Eugene, this again sets a way, especially with your organization. Let's find ways to collaborate. Let's share information. If you are in the health sector, share. I mean, it's a great thing that is happening today. So I'm not all about criticizing, I'm more about encouragement. I'm encouraging everybody to collaborate. So I don't have a lot of points. And then my fifth point, which I wanted to perhaps share with everybody else today, is that we need to be ambitious and look for opportunities beyond our horizon, look for opportunities beyond our community. I'm probably known for doing Zimbabwe Achievers Awards, but there's more that I do. I also do the Global African Awards, which I also do in the UK, in the US, and now in Canada. So I've looked beyond my horizon. Business support, virtual business support that with most of my staff based in Zimbabwe and South Africa. Again, I ask myself the same question: why are we always going to India for support for IT? And whilst we have an educated youth in Africa, so why do we not get those IT support, those business support in our own countries, for example? So this is perhaps something that I wanted to share with you. Let's look beyond our horizon. Let's look beyond our community. I don't want to take a lot of time, but that's what I wanted to share with everybody else. There is a lot of opportunities in the UK. There's a lot of opportunities for us globally, but let's go for them. The funding is there. Go for it. Let's share the information. And Eugene, I must upload this so we can collaborate, talk and be frank with each other. It's very much so. Let's be frank with each other. How do we grow each other? And again, as my colleague said, Muchada, thank you for the remarks of what you said about me. I think there's still a lot to do. We have to be proud of our community. Let's continue to be proud. Let's continue to celebrate. Let's stop playing the victim mentality. Let's celebrate each other. The money is there. Go for it. Those are my words. And thank you for having me. Back to you, Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. First of all, we wish you all the best for the award tomorrow. Thank you for those very inspiring comment. Of course, quite a lot we can do moving forward, and that's why the chamber is here to stimulate and facilitate some of this. And the discussion is not going to end here. For all the panelists, we are coming tomorrow to knock on the door. So make sure the things you've said, we'll hold you by your words to make sure. For example, Conrad will be coming to you to help us put together a very successful annual award to make sure that we also showcase, celebrate our success in the UK and all these opportunities. You are right, money is out there. We just need to educate people about this opportunity, how they can tap into it. Make sure they are also investable. Make sure they have businesses that are bankable, not a business that are a bit washy-washy. The things that a banker will look at it is credible, it has the right infrastructure, the right processes in place. So it gives confidence in terms of where the money is going. So those are the gaps we hope to. And of course, collaboration, I'm sure everyone has mentioned it, and I hope, which is one of our mission as a chamber, is to bring all the businesses together, we collaborate, we put our effort, our resources, our idea, make ourselves have a stronger voice in the society, in the economy, become a stronger voice. So thank you so much for your time, and we hope everything goes well in South Africa, and keep us updated on how the situation goes, and we look forward to catch up later. Finally, let me go to Kufa. Kufa, sorry we've kept you too long, but I'm sure you've enjoyed all the discussion, all the comments and everything, and you come at the right time, especially as an expert in IT and some of the things you've been doing in terms of scaling up. You've had lots of challenges you have in terms of getting the African businesses to grow, to scale up. And also as an expert in IT and technology has been one of the key factors in this lockdown. And majority of the issue we've seen with African business, they lag behind in terms of digitization, technology adoption. What has been your experience? Where are we getting wrong? What can we do to make sure that moving forward, African business are well digitized. They have the right, the technology. They are upfront in terms of adopting all these tech solution that will help them to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eugene. I've really enjoyed being part of it, and I love Bitcoin Labs because it's really given me a chance to sort of listen to the flavor of everything. Before I kind of answer some of your questions, I just want to build on what Conrad said, and just maybe just to bring a bit of contextualization to everything else. My journey is that, when we first set up a company called Into Ambition, so we're basically going into schools and colleges and kind of trying to bring the world of careers alive for young people. I started that idea on the back of a piece of paper, wrote it all out, had a kind of an idea and a business plan behind it, and successfully took that from myself initially to about 42 people in total, co-founder. We raised over £1 million in what we call angel investment, over 5 rounds. So, and so to say about the funding, everything that is available, but you have to have a business model or a clear definition that you want to expand, right? Investors are not interested in investing in companies whereby you're just looking to as a lifestyle business. It's so important for us to have those things that we talk about, right? You've got to have a business plan. You've got to have a clear map, a roadmap of how you're going to go about using their money to invest in your business to grow it. Yeah, so that's absolutely key. And the crazy part of that journey as well, we grew this business. We were definitely ahead of the curve in terms of where the market is and everything else like that. So many lessons learned. So at the same time, you kind of reach that level of success, and we lost it all. So we had to, I had to go back to ground zero, and really kind of lick my wounds and really understand, okay, what is this going to be? And it's a tech organization. And you learn a lot. So I went and I looked at, I did my MBA, but I also went and looked back and kind of picked up some of the experiences that I put into play. And now we're here again with Scale Up for Growth, which is a data analytics business. So what's exciting, in Africa, we only have, probably 2 countries that have oil, but guess what the new oil is now? Big data, right? Big data is the new oil. So for us as an organization, we're going into companies and helping them analyze the data. My board and my team is my chief product officer. She is a female, African. So she's heading up the whole product of that side of the project. My CTO advisor, who we brought into the business, South African as well. So if you want to talk about an African business, really from the top, we are pitching on that level there. And we're in the process right now of raising our first round. So we're looking around £250,000. And we're in discussion with various investors. And that's just for us to take the business from where we are right now with 5 people, potentially ideally get to 15 people, launch our product fully outside of just the MVP. So I just want to say to everybody, look, as Conrad said, the money is out there. The opportunities are there. I think it comes down to 2 things, right? You've got to have your plan. It's absolutely true that we need to collab. Absolutely right around mentorship and support and all that type of stuff. But we've got to be serious about building real legacy businesses, right? So when I look at, when I sit down with my investors and they say, Kufa, what is the plan? The plan is simply this: we're going to grow this business. I am exiting in 5 years. If everything goes well, I'm exiting in 5 years. And the plan around that is we're building something that is going to be sustainable for the future. And that's the key part of whatever you do. So yeah, I read a lot of comments around the struggle to get funding, do we get access to bounce back loans and all that type of stuff. But as a lot of the panelists also said, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have an outline. I think Angie mentioned that, you've got to write down, what am I going to do with this business? How am I going to go about that? In terms of adapting, I think what's really exciting about where we are right now is technology is playing a huge part in everything that we do. And I think as African businesses, we've got a big part to play. I think I posted something around the Black Wall Street app. You can create apps. We can find ways in which we can collaborate, how we can work together, how we can promote each other's businesses in a way that we probably couldn't do 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I think there's a real reason for us to be able to adapt that. When it comes to elements around business planning, there's things like Zero. There's loads of tools that you can use to actually be able to put in your business plan, to forecast what you're going to spend, how you're going to spend it, and all that type of stuff. And these are the type of things that, you know, when you look to grow your business, are going to play a key part in everything that you do. You know, we've got a chance where you could sell from Zimbabwe, you know, from Zimbabwe, you can sell across the world. Yeah, you know, the avenues are open for us to achieve that and to be able to do that. So I think it's important to see technology as our friend and to see this as a huge opportunity. I was talking to, I'm part of an accelerator group, because part and parcel of my ambition is that what I'd like to do is, well, over the next 2 years, as the business starts to move forward, is to kind of start to create what I call an accelerator program. So we'll hopefully get involved with Black-owned businesses, African-owned businesses, and, you know, support around marketing, finance, etc. And then the aim is to help those businesses then raise investment and then actually grow these businesses going forward. But, you know, so part and parcel of what I'm doing at the moment is being part of those type of programs. And I spoke to the people who are part of that program. And yes, one of the challenges we have is that, you know, maybe our internet connection is not the best when we operated from Africa, and how that's going to work and everything else. So we need to look at how can we support that. And, you know, it's about how do we in the UK engage with, you know, some of the African governments to see what kind of investment can take place to help those type of things come into play, because obviously that's a barrier to entry, but it's not a reason why we can't be successful. So I think for me, you know, technology is going to be, it's a massive door opener, you know, whether it's fintech, whether it's what we're doing in big data. I think there's automation. And one thing we have in Africa, which is absolutely great, is that education is such a key point. You know, I remember when I was growing up, I was born in the UK, but I lived in Zimbabwe from the age of 5. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, is that you're expected to get an education, right? And so when you look at where we are now with technology advancement and data and all that type of stuff, there's a huge opportunity for us to actually apply that. Yeah, apply that learning. You know, we are, you know, we are fountains of knowledge. We seek knowledge, and so let's ensure that we do that as a whole. So yeah, I mean, all I can say is, look, it's a hard journey. Okay, being an entrepreneur is hard enough. Being a Black entrepreneur is even harder. And probably being a Black entrepreneur who has a name like Kufa Mateo, which is not recognized as anyone else, you know, that is triple harder. But for me, there is no barrier. There's nothing that stops me from wanting to get to where we need to get to. So I'll say to everyone who wants to become an entrepreneur, who's on this journey, if you want to build something, if you put the right platforms in place, if you put the right systems in place, the money is available, they'll back you. You know, there's a huge pressure to back Black-owned businesses. There's a huge pressure to back female-owned businesses, and it's a chance to leverage that funding. Yeah, you know, there's everything from, you know, private equity, venture capital. But what they do want to see is, look, this is something that's going to be sustainable. This is something that's got legacy. This is something that's got legs. Something that I know if I'm going to put £150,000, if I'm going to put £20,000 into this business, that can be successful. And just quickly, I think for us as successful entrepreneurs or successful professionals, there is also a chance for us to be able to give back in supporting entrepreneurship. So one of the things that, you know, we'll be looking to drive is how do you leverage, I don't know if you've heard about the EIS and SEIS scheme. So in essence, you know, you could invest £5,000, which is 1,000 plus, you know, average about £5,000 into an SEIS EIS scheme. That gives you get a tax rebate at the end of the year, but that money is then used to invest in other organizations as well. Now, there's no reason why, as an African community, we can't do that, because at the end of the day, we're investing in businesses they want to grow, but also at the same time, we are you know, collaborating, we're bringing our experience into play, but we actually then starting to build that scale, so that, you know, when you look at that, those businesses hopefully go on to be successful. If they don't, you know, that's part and parcel of the journey, but hopefully you back enough winners, and that gives us the traction to do so. So I think the opportunities are huge. You know, we have so much potential. We bring so much to the economy. I think we've just got to believe a lot more in ourselves and not allow ourselves to think we can't because this is against us or this is not happening for us. And yeah, that's what I would say. I think, you know, it's been great to sort of.
Thank you, Kufa. That's a good.
And hopefully, you know, I can be part of it again.
Yeah. Thank you, Kufa. That's a good summary. And of course, we can't continue to be used as a stepping stone in everything back here. And the two key things take away from you, of course, technology is key moving forward. Data is the next gold. We've seen everywhere now, every company is investing in data gathering, data analysis. Is the key. We need to make sure that African business also adopted the latest technology to enhance productivity. Yes, you've touched a good point. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Being an African entrepreneur is even harder. Being an being an African is even harder because you are disconnected from your. So we have a long journey to go, but we need to work together. I'm very worried about the time. We've gone over 30 minutes, and I would have loved to get all the speakers to do a quick summary, and we take more questions, but we, in the interest of time, probably we'll have to take over some of those questions and answer them separately. But just before we just wrap up, I just wanted to ask my colleague Jackie and Alice, who've been looking through the comments and also some of the polling, if they have anything to say. Jackie, do you have anything that has been burning through the discussion that you want to bring up? And Alice, how the polling question we did, what was the key highlight?
I'll go first. This has been a good discussion. Everybody seems to, I think we are all on the same page as to wanting to make Africa better for us here in the UK, but also in Africa. And I think this discussion has been fantastic, and I think it's been a great eye-opener and a good start. I think there's opportunity here as the chamber to be able to be the place where everybody else can come in and make this happen. And I think it's nice to have this meeting and to have so many people tuned in and so many people contributing to all this. And I look forward to us all coming together as Africans, collaborating and making this happen for us, for our children and our children's children.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for that. It's a good point. Alice, what's any contribution? I know you've been looking at the polling and some of the key challenges or interests people are keen to be discussed in the future, or areas we can focus on.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have been discussed in this event. They've all been very insightful and also very informative, from finance to us having to also address, issues with the African mentality, mostly. I think going forward, we may have to also address the how we can help our fellow Africans to, address some of the things that have been spoken about. I look forward to discussing with you further on maybe putting a plan down and just actively pursuing that as well.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll pick from some of those polling we done, and we'll go back to some of our speakers to get more input in terms of how can we address some of these challenges. I'm sure I've listed like 20 since we started. It's quite a lot, but if we break down one by one, we are making a difference rather than ignoring it. So in the interest of time, probably, I just want to thank the speakers for their time. We are really sorry we've gone over, but I hope you find the discussion insightful. This is our first event of the many we hope to host, and other activity in terms of supporting African businesses in the UK, getting together. Hopefully today we managed to bring so many people. We had almost 250 people registered, and the people from diverse walk of life, from the business community and all those. And also it has been insightful to learn some of the challenges we are facing and how we can maybe address them along the way, in addition to some of the existing socioeconomic issues like COVID-19 is still with us, recession and all those. But it's been a great evening and for all of you, but I just want to pass it on to Kwae, maybe to wrap it up. I don't know if you have anything to to add before we can close? We don't want to take more time. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, so apologies. So let me just start by apologizing for exceeding our time. But I think you will agree with me that it's been an evening very well spent. This session was very informative, exciting, and insightful. We've had lots of messages. They've been very clear. Some of them inspirational and optimistic, others very complimentary. Indeed, others too very reassuring. But issues have also been highlighted alongside challenges, including opportunities and threats that we as African businesses face. It's been a successful evening, but it's not for want of trying. I would like to acknowledge the hard work that is gone into this, particularly the CEO, Eugene, and my other colleagues, Alice, Adeline, and Jackie, you heard from. They've put in a lot of work to the panelists and the speakers. They've been fantastic in their messages. But above all, thanks to you, the people that have made this happen. Thanks for your participation. And we look forward to engaging you in the future. I wish you a productive and prosperous evening and times ahead. Stay safe, keep well, and stay blessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye for now. Good evening.